Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror, the podcast. I am your host, Kevin L. Powers. I'm also the owner, operator of Something Wicked Film Festival and Events. And welcome to our podcast today. If you have been with us for the last couple of years, you will realize that what we do on our show is that we kind of dissect and critique and analyze a single film throughout the entire day or the entire program. That's so that you, as a listener, can get a better grip and understanding of the films that we are conversating about. Now, that being said, our conversations can be a little bit non critique and analysis and more films about what we really love or what we really don't love, or it can go off into major tangents that have nothing to do with the film, but that's part of the enjoyment of listening to me and my special guests talk about a particular film. This being said, my special guest today, Dave Watkins. Everyone say hey to Dave Watkins. Thank you, Dave, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on. Hi, Dave Watkins. Hey, what's up? I'm here.
Well, today's episode is a little special because one of the things that we've been trying to do this year is kind of hit some of the highlights of films and subgenres that we hadn't been in the last previous years or so. So what we're doing is a special month that is themed after anthology films. Now, we haven't done many of these in the past because anthology films are kind of difficult to do because they have multiple different stories. And how do you adequately talk about a anthology without touching base on each one of the stories? So this episode may be a little bit more different than our normal ones because we're going to touch base on all the different segments in each one of the films. And if you've been listening to our podcast throughout the whole month, you'll realize that we are highlighting anthology films for the whole month. So hopefully you will enjoy this little journey that we're taking, and hopefully that this will help us do more anthology films in the future, because as you all know, as horror fans, there are a plethora of horror anthology films out there, and we have plenty of time to tackle them. So the film that we're going to be talking about today is actually only a two-part anthology film, and it's one of the more unusual ones, as it is Two Evil Eyes, that is directed by Dario Argento and George A. Romero. The first thing I'm going to say is, yes, this is the one that was based, well, both segments are based on Edgar Allan Poe or inspired by the stories of Edgar Allan Poe, which makes it much more interesting for some of us here who are horror fans. We're going to take each one of the segments separately. So we're going to start with George Romero's, I was trying to say the facts in the case of M. Valdemar, directed by George A. Romero. And Dave, kind of tell me a little bit about what you thought of the film and of this segment, just to get us all started.
Right. So and I'm going to just say both of them, but I'm not going to talk about the second one yet. I will say that each one of them is an hour long, and maybe I think that maybe 15 minutes too long each is what I think when I'm watching them. But they do. I mean, not to say that it's just kind of really odd that they decided to make them an hour. It's like a 2 hour film, which I didn't realize it. But as far as the first story, which is based on an Edgar Allan Poe story about the original Edgar Allan Poe story was a hoax. He printed it like it was like a real story about a guy that was put under hypnosis, and then he was dying, and he put him under hypnosis, and he died still under hypnosis, but then he woke back up dead, and he was telling him that he was dead, and then eventually his body decomposed and all this other weird stuff. But when people read that, he put it out there. It was like the Blair Witch. He put it out there like it was like a real story, and people were like, "Holy shit, what? You could get put under hypnosis as you're dying? Like no one's ever done that before, you know?" So that was kind of what Edgar Allan Poe's story is. Like you said, it's loosely based on it. So this is a 1990 horror anthology. Then when you're watching it, it doesn't feel like that to me. It could be set earlier or something, you know, but. Creepshow, which I think is probably the most well-known anthology, 1982, which was before this. So that kind of has a little bit to me of a Creepshow type of vibe, especially when it reminds me a little bit of the Crate story. Because you got like these, or even the story with Leslie Nielsen in it and the wife. But basically, you got this wife played by Adrienne Barbeau. Is that
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. He was often in a lot of John Carpenter films.
Yeah, but also since you mentioned her, and mention Creepshow at the same time because I wasn't sure if you're going to do that. A lot of the cast members in this story are actually also in Creepshow, which
Yeah,
is
it has E.G.
crazy.
Marshall in it too. Yeah, but yeah, and who is that? Only E.G. Marshall and her, right? Is there anybody else?
Yes, there's several other characters. I meant to write their names down. They have cameos in this one, so you kind of blink and miss them if you aren't paying attention.
Tom Atkins is in it too.
Tom
That's right.
Atkins, and of course
Yeah.
the nurse who comes in to take care of M. Valdemar. I wish I could remember her name. Has been in several Romero films as well.
It says Christine Forrest is the nurse.
What happens is Romero used a lot of people who had been in his other films prior to this, probably for budgetary reasons.
Yeah, she actually was married to George Romero, Christine Forrest, at one point. Yeah, but anyway, back to what
Yeah.
happens. So basically, you got this one, the Adrian Barbeau's character is married to an older guy named Vladimir. Is that what I'm gonna say?
I always say
Yeah,
Valdemar.
Valdemar. Yeah. So she's married to this guy, and he's dying. He's really old, and she's trying to pull like a scam because she wants all his money, and she and he is dying, but she kind of feels entitled to his money since she's married him for that purpose, and she's been pretty up. She's been telling everybody this anyway. That was the reason. So, but she's got like a doctor who's helping her, and they're having an affair. But they she talks with at the beginning of that E.G. Marshall's character, Mr. Pike, who's a I guess he's an insurance or something like that, insurance adjuster or will.
He is, I believe, Valdemar's lawyer who takes
Yeah.
care of all that type of stuff, which is why he calls him to verify that what she wants to change in his will is actually correct. So
Right. Yeah. 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 So but he calls him on the phone and he talks to the guy. And what's happened is they put him under hypnosis and so they then they put him under hypnosis like that way. But then he does die and he's still under hypnosis. And I don't. I'll let you take it up from there. I don't want to tell the whole story. I'll let you
well,
tell
you
some
are
of it.
telling the whole story. Oh Jesus!
Well, I hadn't gotten into the important part, and all that to me is a little. I mean, it's drug out. All that part to me is the drug out part. Once he dies, it gets more interesting to
So the
me.
thing is, you have to because Adrian Barbeau's character, I believe, is Jessica, and Robert is
The
the
doctor.
doctor who's taking care of Valdemar as he's slowly dying. He's a trusted doctor, or and but Jessica's also having an affair with him, and he is completely believing in everything that Jessica's doing. So you think they're working together to take all of his money, but in fact, she is even underhanding him by not telling him that she's even taking more money than he even realizes. Now he uses hypnosis not only to help his patients, but he also uses it as a sleep aid, among other things, which comes into play later on in the film.
Right. Yeah, he uses it for himself as a sleep aid.
Yeah, yeah. Which it kind of lets you. It is also something that creeps Jessica out throughout the entire process. She doesn't like that Valdemar is still kept under hypnosis for so long. She thinks it's something that's going to be for a purpose, and then that's it. But Robert has a knack of just leaving him under hypnosis all the time.
He has yeah. There's an interesting prop that's being used for this. He has a digital
Yes.
metronome, and it looks pretty cool. And so a lot of it, you would assume like someone under hypnosis in real life, it's not going to happen. But maybe with this cool metronome thing he has, maybe then.
Well, the thing is that once Valdemar does die prematurely, mind you, he dies before they're able to finish their scam. They still have to make believe he's still alive for public appearance because they don't have all his money yet. So they end up kind of keeping him on ice as this happens.
So that yeah, it was like one of those decisions like a characters make when you're just like shaking your head like why it's like they kick the nurse out and it's like how do you think you're going to get away with that? But I mean it's the same they think that they can, but I think as an audience, you know that it's not going to work. Even like if you think about like that, I don't know what they're thinking is going to happen with the body, but eventually, I mean, I guess since he's a doctor, he's not saying he's going to sign the autopsy
He's gonna
report
sign
and
it
all
off
that
tomorrow.
stuff, but it's all just going to be really, it's too risky to me. It's like, but it's a movie, so they have to do it.
And also think about this was in the 90s. So the ideal behind it is they'll keep him on ice until they need to defrost him and he'll still be fresh. But that's not really the case because as we know in forensic sciences nowadays, not remember this is 1990. You could tell when the tissue has been frozen for a long period of time and it distorts some of the forensic evidence. But back then, whether or not Robert knows all this or not is up for debate. But it makes for a very interesting story development because they keep him on ice, literally in the freezer in the basement, and Jessica starts hearing voices, and the voices she's hearing is Valdemar from another state of consciousness because he was still hypnotized when he passed away. So he's stuck in a limbo world.
Yeah.
Which it becomes even more interesting, as Dave has pointed out, because in this other world there are other spirits, but they cling to him because he's not really completely dead. He's in between, and what he wants as a disembodied spirit, so to speak, is just for them to unhypnotize him and kill him, but they still need him. And by the time they by the time they get around to trying to do it, Jessica has gone off the deep end, in my opinion.
Right. Well, what happens is like she's like a stay-at-home wife. She never leaves. And
No.
the doctor's like gets the hell out. He's like, I gotta go work. You know, he's like, I gotta go. So he like leaves her there all day, and she's there all day in the house hearing the voice, and she just kind of it's just causing her a lot of disarray. She only like kind of leaves at one point. She goes and hangs out at a zoo, and it shows a pretty cool gargoyle statue when that happens. But
Yeah.
most of the time she stays there, and she's just getting cabin fever, and and she's starting to feel some. I think she's starting to feel some guilt about it and regret about even getting involved with the whole thing to begin with. But they're too deep into it really to pull out at that point.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the great things about the way Adrienne Barbeau plays the characters. Like she's, if you've seen Creepshow, she's the complete
Yeah.
opposite of her character in Creepshow. In this one, you can almost think that she's sympathetic and she may have been taken advantage of a little bit, but she's like you said, she's very upfront on exactly why she married him, and Valdemar knows exactly why she married him as well. So it doesn't seem too underhanded what they're doing. It seems more underhanded what she's doing to Robert, but not telling him all the facts.
Right. And it's quite possible that Vladimir was not going to honor what he was saying in his will.
Mm-hmm.
It's a possibility that it was just all he's going to be like just kidding that and the will, and maybe goes to another family member or something to that nature. Which
Yeah.
there's none in the story that you see, but maybe there maybe he does have some, but I would think not, since they would be hanging around waiting for him to die if that was the case.
Yeah. So at one point, as Dave was mentioning, Jessica has gotten cabin fever too much. She left the house to get away from it all, but then she decides that she needs to take things into her own hands, and she ends up shooting the body of Valdemar. And that really makes it difficult because now they can't fake that he just died of natural causes because he's got gunshot wounds in his body. But it also is bad because they were unable to wake up Valdemar. It was too late. And the other forces on the other side where he is can now inhabit or open the gates to our world. Um,
He says some like really cool stuff like Vladimir does at one point when
does.
he's talking to him, and he says there are others, they are watching me, and he's like the others are coming, like they're coming for him, and then someone else makes a remark that there is consciousness after death, and I think all of that it really To me, like that really is almost like maybe kind of like Poltergeist, but it does kind of make you kind of afraid for all the characters when that's happening, and it kind of amps up everything.
Oh no, no, I got that vibe too. Very much like Poltergeist, where they were using the ghosts were trying to use Carol Ann to so they could see the light or go into the light. I saw that. I saw the Valdemir thing is the exact same thing. They're going to use him, but what ends up happening is they have access to our world once they use him. And unfortunately, they shoot his body, and so they can't wake him, and they've left the door open, of which they or them or whatever they are, because we only see shadows later on in the film.
Yeah.
Once they've come through, so to speak.
But then they use his body to come after him. I
Mm-hmm.
don't I don't think that Vladimir doesn't seem like the type of he still seems to even try to be working with him a little bit even when he's dead and unconscious and telling him that he's dead. And that's the story from the original. Like I mean that's a story that's like from the original novel. He says that he's dead while he's under hypnosis as he's dead. But like that sort of really creepy sort of thing to be saying. But he basically wants them to help him, but then once they shoot him like that, and then the others take over his body, and then he comes after them.
Mm-hmm. Well, they make Jessica shoot herself.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Robert doesn't know this because he's too busy out back trying to dig grave, if I remember correctly. So he's out
Yeah, another good decision. Yeah,
there.
just we'll bury him in the yard, and then no one's going to ask any questions.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that too after that point. Okay. But it gets him out of the house long enough for Jessica to get killed and then him to walk back and not know all the details of what the hell happened. Um, he takes the money that Jessica has already absconsed with and then tries to just live it up in his own apartment, which is one of the sequences I really enjoyed
Yeah,
because it shows him when he can't. Well, and they establish it. So let me be back. It gets stressed out. He doesn't get any sleep, and he uses the metronome to hypnotize himself to sleep. Now, after digging his grave and seeing everything that happened to Valdemar and Jessica, the person he was sleeping with, he does the same thing again, except he's got bags of money just lying everywhere in this apartment. And of course, the people that were let into our world come to pay him a visit, and they use the metronome to actually be rid of him.
right. It's a really cool. It's a really cool shot. He's actually used the metronome to put himself under hypnosis to sleep. So there again, he's dead, like the other guy. But they actually lift the metronome up in the air and then drop it. They point it in, goes into him and kills him, and he's dead and under hypnosis again, just like Vladimir.
Yeah, and
Right before this happens, they do establish a cop character played by Tom Atkins and his partner, but
yes,
he's he shows up in a very Tom Atkins like form. He's got a, fedora on, and he's got his signature mustache, and it's
uh,
like they establish him pretty good. They have like a kind of like behind the head silhouette shot, and he turns around, and there he is.
yeah, he's playing that detective that he's so well known for in so many movies now. It's great what happens when they try and pay Robert a visit after moans and sounds from his apartment have been rattling the neighbors for quite some time. And then
Yeah, then yeah.
you want me to
So then
say it?
the cops break in there, and then he's undead, and he stands up, and he's undead, and then the others are controlling him. Sort of
Yeah,
pretty cool ending. But
yeah. It's the only gory part in the whole movie. Really, is that when the metronome kills Robert, and then of
yeah,
course you see the zombified Robert. So if you're a huge Romero zombie fan, you still get a zombie in the movie.
well, yeah. I mean, there's the other zombie too, though. When Vladimir like is shot, and he's got all
Uh-huh.
these holes in him, and he's coming after Jessica. You're a huge George Romero fan. You were talking about that before. So as
Mhm.
far as as far as his filmography, what did you see in this one as far as when relating that to his visual style, his filmmaking style?
The thing about Romero is a lot of his style because he came from a commercial background originally, and that's why 9/11 Dead looks the way it does. As and of course with this one, which came after Dawn of the Dead, which he also worked with Dario Argento with, and then he did this movie with Dario Argento.
Yeah.
I kind of see some of that Dario Argento stuff, kind of his style, kind of going over to him.
Right.
If you watch
Yeah.
Dawn of the Dead, you watch 9/11 Dead, they look more documentary, have a
Okay.
more of a documentary look, whereas this one has a more cinematic look, which is what he would use for his later films. It's, like Monkey Shines, like we were talking about that earlier. You didn't know that was one of his
Yeah.
films. And the Dark Half, the Stephen King adaptation of the Dark Half. He started. He came up with a lot of great shots, and the thing about Romero, if you watch his films, is he allows the story to actually flow and it take its time, because you're seeing a lot of development with the characters as you're watching this, because there's not a whole lot of action that happens in this film, unlike Dario Argento's The Black Cat, which we'll talk about later. This one is very methodical because it's mostly a two-person, two and a half person, if you count E.G. Marshall, because he comes back and forth a couple times. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
He kind
really
of drops off like later on, but yeah, I mean, it's really like I say, it's two people. Maybe I would say the half person would be Vladimir because he is a character. I mean, yeah, he's mostly dead most of the time, but he does
I say we
talk.
don't actually. I don't know if we actually see him actually function as a live person.
Yeah, yeah,
But
but he talks through hypnosis most of the time. But he's
but this is a far cry from some of his earlier works in terms of its look and feeling, but it still has that very deliberate pacing.
yeah,
If you're, and which is why it's probably better that this film came first, because if you watch The Black Cat, it's a much gorier film segment than this segment is. This is a very deliberate, paced segment. Just like most of Romero's, I guess, non-studio films. Monkey Shines is probably the closest one you can think about with the way that the pacing is. I would have said The Dark Half, but The Dark Half, the Dark
yeah.
Half is his own little monster.
Yeah,
Uh,
Dark House is based on a Stephen King, but they just have a new 4K of that came out for Vinegar Syndrome. I just got it yesterday. Looking
yeah,
forward
you
to it
tell
now.
I gotta get that one too.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to checking it out. You can get it next month. He'll reopen their shop in July. So they have it closed in June. You can only get like the partners only releases, but next month you'll be able to get it again. So
Oh Jesus. Okay. Well, we'll have to talk about that one once you get it and watch it. And once I get a new one, I've seen that one as well many times. But the thing is, uh, like if you've watched a lot of Romero films, he loves to use the same cast members over and over again. He has a staple of cast members that he loves to use over and over again, and that and gives them different types of roles. Because if you've seen Adrienne Barbeau in Creepshow, this is a completely different type of character than what she played in that film. He does that a lot. Ed Harris, who was in Creepshow and in Night Riders, completely different characters than what he's played. He does that to a lot of his great actors because he trusts that these actors will deliver. And they do. And E.G. Marshall was completely different. Creepshow, between
yeah,
that character and this character, completely different.
right, right, yeah,
Um, and I really enjoy that. I really enjoy that watching his films. When I did my review, when I did my thesis paper on Romero, I talked mostly about how he utilizes his zombie-like or zombie characters throughout his filmography, and that's why I mentioned that when we talked about this one. He's kind of created different types of zombies throughout his
yeah.
long career. Even Creepshow has several different kinds. This one, because people think that he's only done one type of zombie and it's his zombie movies, but he's done many different types of the same type of thing throughout his entire career. Something that he can't get away from.
This yeah, this being based on Edgar Allan Poe, it does in some instances lean towards gothic horror, and especially it takes place in a very big mansion, and you got a kind of gothic horror type of setup with you got the wife like trying to fight over a guy's inherit like money and
Yeah,
bad things happen. So
well, yeah, but with this film, it's more of a modern gothic. Now, if you watch any of Romero's films, he never has done anything that's actually truly gothic. But
yeah,
and I would say Dario Argento's The Black Cat is closer to it than this one is. This one is
yeah,
so modern in its execution that people would have to try to look for all the gothic underpinnings that are in this film.
yeah,
Um,
right. Yeah, that makes sense. But it is modern for 1990, as
yeah,
there's no cell phones in this film.
yes, so yeah. And if you take a look at his filmography, George Romero never did period movies. He never did anything that was like that. They were all pretty modern for the time in which they were made. Um,
Yeah,
a lot of that's a comment on part of his use of commentary in his films.
right.
So
Yeah, I've
that's
heard that before. Yeah, he like a lot of times he even mentioned that he didn't get the point of some zombie films today that were there's no point unless you're making some kind of commentary about some kind of social thing that's going on at the time.
yep. So that's pretty much the gist of this segment. I'm not sure if there's anything else you want to talk about with this segment or not. What else you got? Anything?
Yeah, I think I got everything on it. I think I had to say in it. Yeah, all my notes. I don't see any others.
Okay. All right. So for everyone out there, we're gonna switch off to the second segment of the film, which is Dario Argento's The Black Cat, which I know for some people this will be the much more fun one. If anything, it's also the most gory of the two, and it also kind of utilizes a lot of elements from many different Edgar Allan Poe stories instead of being just directly related to one. So what do you
Right. Yeah, I really like that aspect of it too, because it's almost like which Edgar Allan Poe story is that from? So like most of the time some little bitty hints to some things, but there's a lot of it in there in this one.
Well, that's what I liked about this one because all of the crime scenes that Harvey Keitel's character is supposed to photograph are from various Edgar Allan Poe stories. And
Yeah.
I find that
Right.
hilarious now.
Yeah. His character's named Rod Usher. His last name's Usher, like the Fall of the House of Usher. So
Yeah.
there's in his character name, you even got that. I really think that Dario Argento was more trying to embrace Edgar Allan Poe with his than more so than George Romero,
Mm-hmm.
because you definitely I felt that a lot more. And I like Dario Argento's work. Suspiria, I really like that film, and it's several of his other films. I do like his style, and it does you do see a lot more of his style in the Black Cat than you do in the first part of it.
Oh,
But
most definitely. This
yeah,
is
you see,
all Dario Argento, from his cinematography and lighting to the way that he utilizes the production design and the sets. They're all like he has some very creative stuff in this film for as short as it is, and the fact that he's borrowing from Edgar Allan Poe.
well, yeah, and unlike the first one, he's not like he's not in one. He's got like several locations that he moves around. He's got like a lot more locations, even though most of it takes place in the apartment. But he does go to crime scenes and he goes to a bar at one point, and there's just a lot more locations involved with it.
Mm-hmm.
And you say it's short, but it's still an hour long. It's, it, it doesn't. It the one thing this one's hard for me to watch because of the character Harvey Keitel plays, the Rod Usher character is he's a very abusive person and he's an alcoholic and he's descending into like a very violent state, and as the film goes on he becomes worse and worse. He's never there's never any point of any type of sympathy for him. You think
Yeah.
maybe earlier, and there's no that's why this one's harder for me to take than the first one because of all the meanness that's involved with it.
Yeah, well, it starts off with his the way he treats crime scenes as he photographs them. This is one of the great things I love about the cop in this one, John Amos, because
Yeah,
they have these conversations as he's photographing each one of the crime scenes. I
right. And those are great. It's almost like a kind of a Dexter situation, you know.
yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, and those, yeah, and I like John Amos too. And it's that's one note I was thinking. It would have been cool if they connected the cops to the two movies.
Um,
I was thinking like even John Amos is like he's kind of dressed similar to the way Tom Atkins is dressed. If he could have been like one of the two actors could have been the cop in both of them, that would have been a cool connection between the two stories, you know?
Oh, that would have been. That's a missed opportunity. That would have been an excellent
Yeah,
collaboration.
yeah, yeah. But
Um,
yeah, I don't know, but it's but yeah, but I think the story. So the story, he's a photographer for a crime scene photographer, and he's wanting to get into other stuff. He's wanting to sell some of his work. They're all like, yeah, it's all the same. It's just like there's no soul to it. You're just photograph, photographing dead bodies and all this stuff. And so he's takes some pictures of this. His girlfriend gets a cat, and he hates it.
mhm.
And the cat's like an asshole to him, I guess.
The cats
And
in general hate him.
yeah, yeah, the cats don't like him, and he's having to hang out with this cat, and then he starts doing pictures of it, and as he's doing it, he gets so into it, he starts strangling the cat while he's taking the pictures, and he kills it, and then he tries to hide the cat, or he throws it away or whatever, and then the girlfriend's looking for it, and she's she starts to like think that he had something to do with it, and he starts getting more and more angry about it, and it's a good performance. Harvey Keitel's performance is good, but it is hard to watch. I mean, as far as like, I think once he kills that cat, there's not much hope for him after that part.
Yeah. No, no, and there's not supposed to be, especially by the time the end of the movie comes along. But the thing about this is that he also in addition to being very violent towards the cat, he's also planning on profiting from the cat by finally selling his art, which he hides from his girlfriend. His girlfriend doesn't know about his book with these pictures until much later in the film.
Yeah,
She sees the descent of Harvey Keitel, but doesn't always know what it is just yet. She just knows that he's made a complete change over time, and it's rubbing her the wrong way. And to the point that she tries to leave him when she's had enough. But before she tries to leave him, Harvey Keitel has found another cat that looks just like the cat that he strangled. Um,
yeah,
and trying to make it seem as though the cat just came back.
yeah. It's a reincarnation. It seems to be maybe a reincarnation of the same cat,
Mhm.
perhaps. There's a really cool dream sequence in this film earlier on. It takes place in the medieval
Oh
times.
yeah,
That part is great. That's very Dario Argento, that sequence. And he ends up she's like, I guess the wife is in the dream sequence in old clothes, and then they end up like putting him up on a stick because they're executing him for his crimes. But it's a cool sequence.
yeah, but it plays a part in how he ends up at the very end as a premonition. Um,
Right, yeah.
so at first I had forgotten that. I always forget that damn dream sequence because I keep forgetting that it actually means something.
Yeah. What's funny about that sequence is they used to, I think this came on first time I saw it maybe at HBO or Cinemax, and they had a commercial before it. It was just like talking about different films that were like the horror movie night, whatever. And when they showed a clip of this one, it shows a clip of him like up on the spike, and like they have a pretty cool high angle shot. It's kind of like the camera's high angle over him, and he looks up, and it kind of it pulls back. It's a cool shot, but they had that shot in the teaser trailer for a bunch of other horror movies they were having on horror movie night or whatever it was. I mean, that's why I remember the dream sequence pretty good from that. But it also plays well in the film, but it happens fairly early in the movie, so maybe by the time you get near the end of it, because it's an hour long, it probably happens maybe 15 or 20 minutes into it. By the time you get to the end and all the crazy other stuff that happens, you've kind of forgotten it.
Yeah. So yeah, and this one has a lot of crazy stuff happening in it because Roderick keeps getting called to these crime scenes, and one is I try to remember all of them. One obviously is a Pit and the Pendulum, and then
Right.
I
The
forget
first
the
one is, yeah.
yeah, and they're all themed after different Edgar Allan Poe things, and it all has to do with mostly couples where one of them kills the other one. And then of course, that's exactly what happens at the very end with Harvey Keitel and his girlfriend. And I never noticed that
The-
until I rewatched it.
right, yeah, I didn't think about that either. I think another one has it's a reference to Bernice, like when the girl in the coffin has all her teeth pulled out.
Mm-hmm.
like somebody that was someone after the fact she was dead, and then somebody, I guess her boyfriend or whatever, came and pulled all her teeth out when she was already dead.
Yeah,
Um, he kills the wife a lot earlier. He doesn't kill her at the end. He kills her pretty early, maybe 30 or minutes into it, or
I think so.
35.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because he has to come up with a plan to
yeah.
he has to come up with a plan to say that she has disappeared on her own, even though he doesn't know at this point that she was actually planning on leaving him and going somewhere else. He kills her and then reads the note she left him. Um,
And he does, he's kind of like in the first film where they're doing this stupid, I have this bad idea about how to get away with some kind of murder, and he thinks he's
mhm,
clever, and he does some similarly dumb things, like goes on vacation and he acts like she's with him, and kind of tries to make people think that she's with him, but
mhm,
then I don't know. I mean, but he also yeah, but another another thing I noticed in both of these, and this may be unintentional, like as he's trying to hide the body, and this happens in the first film too, the one by George Romero. Somebody comes to the door and rings the doorbell, and he has to stop trying to hide the body and hide it and go to answer the door. And
mhm.
he does it in this one. I think one of his neighbors comes to the door, and it happens in the other one too. I think the nurse shows up at the door, but
Yeah.
it's like I don't know if that's like an intended like connection or it just happened to be like a plot beat that they both used.
Well, I would say that since the two collaborated on Dawn of the Dead, that they may have collaborated a little bit, knowing how each other's story may unfold, and added some of these type of things. Because I started noticing that as well. I was like, oh yeah, I guess they did have that in both movies because I had never bothered to think
Yeah.
about that beforehand, but I noticed it this last time we watched it for the podcast. So like I'm trying to decipher it a little bit more because normally I really watch this film for Romero's version, not so much Dario Argento's version. So I'm missing.
Right, and yeah, they do have similar themes in a way, but I mean, of course, they are Edgar Allan Poe, so it's like a similar type of like themes with most of his stories like that. Yeah, the
Mm-hmm.
Black Cat is very similar to his story. What happens in this? It's in a modern time, but it's what happens in the story is very similar to what happens in that story
Mm-hmm.
to the
Um,
character.
and like we were discussing, at halfway through this project, he's trying to make believe his wife's not there, but when he gets back, people start asking about her, and one of the young men who likes her, or one of her students, because she's a musical teacher, comes
Yeah,
knocking. He obviously thinks that Harvey Keitel's character Usher has done something to his wife or slash girlfriend. Since they actually
yeah,
mentioned that they were never married.
yeah. He says that several times. He's got that kid got pretty lucky because he could have killed him too at one point, but because he like lets him go, but he's like in the house hiding from him, and he catches him in the house. So I mean, he possibly could have killed him as well, but he gets away and he keeps running his mouth. He goes and talks to the neighbors. Burt Young plays one of the neighbors,
I
and
know. Yeah,
yeah,
and it becomes this whole thing about Usher looking at all his neighbors and they're all plotting against him. And then obviously, I think it's the next day. I think it's the next day when Amos shows back up at his apartment or at his house uh, because of the concern of other people.
yeah, yeah.
And
It's such an awesome scene though. That whole sequence is so awesome. And then just he comes in and then he's like he's trying to still be kind of friendly with him, but then he's still being a detective and he's very suspicious of him, even though they've kind of had like a bit of a friendship as the movies earlier in the film.
yeah,
But he's
and a
still
lot
there
of
as the
it,
cop and he's very suspicious.
yeah, but a lot of the suspicion actually comes from his partner who kind of goes off on his own, the snoop and look and all that other type of stuff.
Yeah. And he's got the cat the book that he's made, the photography book with the cat pictures in it, and he's saying that the detective's like his he basically the detective wants him to sign his book, and he's got the because he kind of gives him credit, the detective credit for his help getting him on the crime scenes and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. But unfortunately, for everyone involved, this entire last part of the story goes batshit crazy. Um, where I think everyone dies.
Yeah,
um,
but the
which I was
what the so the yeah he put the wife in the wall. He walled her up, and that's the kind of like that was it that other Edgar Allan Poe story, the Cask of Amontillado.
yeah.
But she's dead already, so it's not quite the same. But it is maybe a throwback to that. But he's got her in the wall, and he starts hearing scratches, which is the kind of a telltale heart thing,
Mm.
because the cat is in the wall with her. One thing I noticed when he's got the wall, he got her, and he puts a like a video shelf up. He's got VHS tapes. I noticed a few of the films, probably some
Oh,
Romero's favorites. Yeah, the Searchers is the one that's most prominent. Like John Wayne's film, The Searchers. That's the one you see the best. And then Doctor Strangelove, or how I learned to stop worrying and love the bomb. Those are the two that are most prominent the
um,
VHS tapes.
I'm surprised. Was it? Yeah. I think his Searchers was one of Romero's. I've now forgotten because I've been reading about like John Carpenter and everyone else has these favorite old ass westerns as
Yeah.
influences on their work.
Searchers is really a good film though. If you've
It
never seen
is.
it, yeah, it is. You've seen it. Yeah, it's one of John Wayne's best films. It's probably if not his best film, but it's pretty strong.
Yeah, yeah.
And themes in that about them searching for a girl that's probably dead, and then when they find her, they end up having to they end up having to kill her anyway, or she gets killed like right away. So it's kind of like I mean that type of theme. It could be contributed some of Romero's work, I would think.
Okay. So now that we've discussed both films, what do you think? How do you think this film actually works as an anthology overall?
Well, I guess we should mention what happens when they open the wall up at the end of it.
Oh, you
Yeah,
know
because
what? We just say,
yeah,
yeah,
because I got off track of the VHS tapes.
you
The
did.
cops end up opening the wall.
So we have to say that because that's the whole batshit crazy ending. Now,
Yeah, yeah,
but the not mention that when they open the wall and obviously John Amos's partner is the one opening the wall and the body comes out and they see the babies, the cat who had been
yeah,
eating on the dead body in the wall to
yeah.
survive, and they're all like,
The cat was pregnant.
oh,
Yeah, yeah,
totally disturbing and
yeah,
disgusting. But then all hell breaks loose, and I forget who dies first, whether it's the partner or John Amos gets
yeah. Well,
shot.
the part, yeah. But he handcuffs him first.
Yeah, he handcuffs
Yeah,
him.
yeah, and he's
Oh my
handcuffed to
god,
him. Yeah,
he handcuffs him, thus trapping himself. But Roderick or Usher, who should be, oh, okay, I got caught, take me in. Still thinks
yeah,
he can escape.
yeah,
Still
yeah,
thinks he can escape and ends up killing John Amos's character, who he's handcuffed to, and he's trying to escape. But he goes out the window, and unfortunately, everything that happens in his premonitions from earlier actually happens to him there, where he gets tangled up in some.
But he has a really stupid plan. He has like a rope. He puts it around him. He's going to try to, I guess, shimmy down the window, but he
Yeah,
accidentally puts it around his neck, and then like falls out the window with the cop. The cop falls out the window. He's handcuffed to him, and then it drags him down, and then he ends up getting strangled.
he ends up hanging himself.
Yeah, and the cop's hanging off of him. It's a pretty gruesome shot too. It's pretty impressive, really.
Yeah, well, it kind of goes along with the rest of the movie, has how gruesome it is, but it not only shows that the Usher is not really the smartest person there is,
Oh
since he's
yeah,
part of his own demise, and he was even given a premonition about his own demise. Um,
yeah.
and part of that is kind of a lot of the stuff in this one is kind of Hallmark Poe stories, and
Oh,
that's why this one probably feels more like a Poe story than Romero's version, which is
oh,
very.
you mean Hall? I thought you meant like it was like watching a film on the Hallmark Channel, but with some Poe mixed in there. So I was like, is it? I was like, maybe that first one's more like a Hallmark Poe movie.
Oh Jesus! There's no
I see
Hallmark.
what you mean, though. You mean the the trademark stuff, or
Yes.
from Poe stories?
Oh my God. Oh my god, that would probably kill us if I said that we're watching a movie that should be on the Hallmark Channel. Um, but now I've lost my train of thought. But I
Sorry, man.
knew
Yeah.
what I want to say is that a lot from what my old readings of this, because I have not read anything more lately since probably the 2000s about this movie, is that it's not like a top tier film of either one of these directors, but the one that's probably more enjoyed or more talked about is the Argento one. Because it's very visual, and he uses his cinematography and director and his colors and all that are saturated colors, just like you would expect him to use, like he did in Suspiria and some of his other films. All that is in this film. This looks like an Argento film from beginning to end. It's exactly what you expect, where you see excesses and violence and everything else. And of course, the main character Usher ends up, in some way contributing to his own self, like so many villains in some of these Argento's other films, like
Right.
Deep Red and Tenebrae and so many of his other films. That's why this one feels so much like an Argento film.
So you asked me earlier if what I thought about the anthology as a whole.
Yes.
My first, like I said earlier, my first impression was they're too long. I think there should have been three instead of two, and they would have been a lot stronger. I think especially Romero's to me seems especially long. And then I don't. Argento's one's harder to take because the protagonist is so unlikable, and it's just and you got to follow him through the whole hour thing. But he is Harvey Keitel, and he does a really awesome job. So that, there is that. I think they like have read some reviews of it where people didn't think they quite worked together. I thought they worked pretty good together. I didn't think they didn't work together. I just thought they were both. I think there could have been a third story, or they could have been shorter, and it would have been a stronger pairing.
Well, see, I asked that because for me, both films are so different.
Yeah.
I like that about the whole concept because it's called Two Evil Eyes. So I if I had seen and like you said, it would probably work better with multiple more stories. But because there's only two stories, I wanted two stories that are so different from each other. Because if I gotten two stories that were too much alike, I probably would have just not cared about either one of them. Um,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I've never mind either one of them. They're lengthwise. I until recently I kind of think that the Argento one went a little bit too far. But then when I started thinking about, oh wait, Tana Bray, Deep Red, a lot of his films end with the main character actually getting themselves killed by stupid ways. Ah, hell, this is
Yeah.
so much like an Argento film. And I scratched that whole thinking process out.
Yeah, there's no way around that character not getting killed in that film in that one, and really like and I guess it's kind of hard sometimes with these anthology films, like even like Creep Show, most of the time they end with the main character getting killed, but you don't spend like an hour with them before it happens. Yeah. It's like, it's like, yeah, we're here to watch them get killed, but it'd be better if it happened quicker and more people got killed.
You know what? I don't recall reading about whether or not people thought the same way you did regarding this two stories. I do think that this film is really catered towards fans of both Argento and Romero, as opposed to just a random person watching it. I do think some things are lost on it because, like you say, you would if you're wanting to watch an anthology movie and all you're getting are two really long stories. I think it will change your perspective and enjoyment of the film because like most anthology films, you will have one or two that might be good, and you only have one or two that will be bad. And if one of these is bad to you, you're sitting through an hour of the bad
Right, right.
one.
Yeah, yeah. And neither one of them are bad. They're both pretty strong, but I mean, to me it's like it is like that first one though is very slow paced.
Yeah,
And it doesn't it would not until it's and there's a lot of like There's a lot of cliches in it when you're watching it. That I mean, not that most of them have cliches in them to some certain degree, but it's just like but you're watching like this setup you've seen 100 times. But it does get more interesting once the character goes under hypnosis when he's dead, and that's the whole point of the story. That's what the whole story was about, and that's just a really profound idea of him talking to him under hypnosis as he's dead in the freezer, and seeing these other beings
Mm,
that are surrounding him, that
yeah.
what he sees in this kind of space between life and death. And I think that and that part until the ending is actually pretty strong. And I was pretty, especially on this one watch when that metronome goes up in the air and shoots into that guy's chest. I was like, holy shit.
I did that the first time I saw it when I was not expecting that.
Yeah,
I do remember that I was like, "Oh shit!" And
yeah,
because for the most part, there's no gore in
yeah.
this segment.
Yeah,
But it did.
that's like I think the ending of it's really awesome though. The last like maybe 5-10 minutes is like really awesome. Once Tom Atkins shows up,
Oh yeah, oh yeah, because I wasn't expecting the Robert to be an undead ghost stuck in limbo.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. It completely changed like the way that the story was, and the way that even the filmmaking kind of changed a little bit. It became more exciting all of a sudden. Yeah,
I won't dismiss that. I mean, if you're used to watching a Romero film like Dawn of the Dead or Day of the Dead, this film could be kind of a little bit of a letdown because it's not nearly as gory or as fast paced as those films are. I mean, even though people say Day of the Dead is slow and meticulous, it's also extremely gory. Every 5-10 minutes, someone's freaking
yeah,
dying a gory death. You know,
right. Yeah,
um,
yeah.
so
I don't have anything I mean, I don't have anything against slow moving stories. I like them, but I think it's just it's just I guess the subject matter of them. And can you imagine if they tried to take one of these two stories and put it into an hour and a half instead of like an hour? It would be they'd have to do something completely different with it, I would think, to make it work for another half an hour, you know. But they maybe could have squeezed it in, but they wouldn't have to change, made it make it more exciting, you know.
well, to be honest with you, now that you bring that question up, I would think that for Argento's one, they would have to show Roderick's girlfriend a lot more.
Yeah,
We'd
yeah,
have to follow her a lot more than what we did in this film because she gets killed too early, and we're just watching Usher the whole way. It would become something like Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. You'd have to figure out if you could stand being with that character for an hour and a half. It'd be
it
hard.
could be, yeah, it could be a situation too where the character doesn't know that he's doing these things. Like he kind of flips at certain points. Like, a lot of times that's done in a film, and then it makes the character more sympathetic when he's like a split personality or something, you know.
Yeah, like Raising Cain with
Yeah.
John
Yeah, John
Lithgow.
Lithgow. Yeah,
Well,
that's
you're
really
sympathetic towards him because he has so many freaking different personalities, and they're not all bad.
it's that film's very entertaining though. His performance is just like really awesome. There's a different cut of that. You ever seen it? There's like because it's told out of order in the cut, but someone did another cut of it. That's told in order. It's really because it's like actually I think the out of order cut works better because the first scene you see him he gets with this mom, the soccer mom, and she's driving him and he kills her in the car and it's just like but in the regular cut it's a long time before he's actually revealed to be that a schizophrenic and a killer. But in the way they went ahead and rearranged the scene so he's like a killer right off the bat in that one.
I'll have to look for that.
Yeah, it's like I think Scream Factory has it. It's like there's two cuts of it on there.
Oh,
I
I'll
don't
have to
think
definitely get that. I haven't seen that movie in a long time. It's been a while. I've always enjoyed that movie because of John Lithgow.
right.
But
Yeah.
I've only seen it. I haven't seen it in a long time. But like, even though I haven't seen it in a long time, I still remember his performance and love his performance in that movie.
Yeah, yeah. He plays like several different versions of himself in it too. It's pretty. He's an awesome actor though.
Yeah. Well,
John.
that was the coup for Argento getting Harvey Keitel for his segment because he shines tremendously. In the film as a whole, I think he shines the brightest out of everyone in there. as much as
Oh
I
yeah.
love Adrienne Barbeau, she's playing a much more subdued character than I'm used to her seeing. She plays it well, but Harvey Keitel
Yeah.
just kind of shines in the role. So
Well, he's really good in that role, even though this is a despicable character. I do like the crime scene parts. Like,
why?
yeah, I
I would
really
think
like
they have
those
to.
scenes.
You brought up something that's amazing. If they'd done those like you would, if they would do it nowadays, it'd be very close to what they do in Dexter, and it would be
Yeah,
amazing. I think
yeah.
I think they did something like that. They could get away with this.
Well, it is like, I mean, it is like Dexter in a way, though. Dexter's like a lot later, but it kind of Dexter's awesome though. But he's working as the blood
Splatters, blood
yeah, it's
splatters.
blood splatter expert. It's just funny though when he goes in there and talks to him and stuff, the cops and all that, you know. But this one, that's another thing the Black Cat could have done too, is they could have. I mean, they basically followed the Poe story fairly close for the most part, but they could have had him like investigating his own crime scenes or taking pictures on his own crime scenes or something of that nature.
Hmm. Hmm.
If he,
Interesting. So what we're saying is this is going to be an interesting anthology film for whoever watches it. Uh, I do think that from your perspective and from a general audience perspective, this is an easy film to dismiss because if you hate one of the stories, then it will probably take you out of the entire film. Whereas with a traditional anthology that could have 4 or 5 segments in it, if you find one that just doesn't appeal to you, it's going to be over in like 10 to 15 minutes. So it doesn't take up much of your time.
it could, yeah. I mean, it's could be unique in the way that it has just two stories. I don't think there's too many other ones that don't only have two stories like this.
I actually don't know of any. Uh,
Yeah, I
the,
can't think of any, but there
the
probably
other,
are.
the only anthology films I could think of that come close to doing what this one does, which is there is no wraparound, there is just a moderate theme, which is Poe, are the 3 Extremes anthology films, which take a director from different countries to do one segment that's about 30 minutes long,
Yeah.
and they're not connected whatsoever, and you just watch them as though they were short movies, and then you're out of there. There's 3 of them in each one. I don't know if you've seen those or not.
No, I haven't seen them now.
They're amazing because they're 3 directors from different countries.
What did you say it was called?
3, as in the number 3, and 3 Extremes.
Okay. Yeah.
Very good anthology films. Unfortunately for me, I wasn't able to get anyone to be able to do those 2 movies with me, so you won't be seeing those this month, everyone. Well, maybe down the line, I can convince some of our special hosts to come on and do those films with me.
I mean, I'll do them. I don't care, man. I didn't like show. I mean, you said it. I'm like, what is that?
Yeah, because they're very different. Some of them are very gory. They're all completely.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what VHS tries to do, but VHS has these wraparound segments. There are no wraparound segments for these. They are simply what they are, and the directors, filmmakers for each segment had kind of a free reign to do whatever they wanted to do. So you kind of get something different with each segment. It's actually really interesting. But that being said, do you have any other comments about Two Evil Eyes, Dave?
I think that's all I got on there. I think I said everything I had notes on. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to leave everyone with this. I do think that this film it will be more enjoyable by fans of Romero and Argento than people who don't have a clue of who these two are. I do believe that this is kind of like one of those I'm not sure because I haven't read about any of the behind the scenes stuff, but I do believe that this was kind of like one of those fun little projects that 2 friends got together to say, we're going to do 2 Poe movies, just me and you, because they've worked together before, and we're going to make it into a movie, and we're going to put it out there and see how it does. That's how I get this is like a vanity project to me. I think that's the impression I get from watching this film. It's like, we don't care what anyone else thinks about this movie. We're just doing ourselves a Poe movie, and we're each going to do our own thing, and we're just going to put them together and put it out there and see what happens.
They got it on HBO.
So that's how I see this film. And I did see this when it first came out. I don't know if this movie actually went to the theater or not. I saw it on when it came out on VHS because
It says, I mean, it says it had a theatrical run, but it must not have been much of one because it made less than its budget. But it must have been a small release. It did play on cable a lot, so it may have made some money back. As I did see it playing a lot.
what was the budget? Do you know?
Um, I'll
No.
tell you in a second,
Oh, okay.
yeah, here it is. The budget was, it says 9 million. That seems a little extreme, but it says the box office was 349,618.
Oh, I had a very limited release then.
Yeah,
Hey, you know what? It may never even played in the United States. It may have only played in Italy.
right. Yeah, maybe that's what it was because it's that's a very low amount made for such a big budget like that. But it was probably made for more VHS sales and television distribution, which they eventually got. And that was probably what it was all about, is selling it. That was when VHSs and things like that were you were able to make a lot of money off of rentals and
and
stores.
and Argento was doing a lot of work for Italian television, so it could also be because Argento also did many different anthology shows as well for Italian television. So I wouldn't be surprised if this would probably had something to do with that as well.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, Alfred Hitchcock used his television crew to craft his Psycho. Okay, to keep the budget down. It happens. We all know it does. All right. So, Dave, since we rate the movies from 1 to 5, one being horrible to 5 being great, where on this spectrum do you put Two Evil Eyes?
I'm going to land it at a 3. It is kind of I do appreciate it, but it's not as exciting as I would like for it to be. But I do appreciate both the segments, and I think the directors did a really good job. They have a Blue Underground is the version that I've got. It's a 4K release. It looks really good in 4K. So
Oh, good. I thought about getting that one myself. I saw it, but I hadn't gotten it yet.
yeah,
Me and you have talked previously, and the fact that I'm re-getting all my George Romero films. I haven't gotten my Argento films yet. I need to re-get those because I have every Argento film on VHS, not VHS, but DVD. But I have not upgraded all of them to Blu-ray.
yeah. The ones I've gotten so far have looked really good, and most
Oh,
of his are on 4K now.
well, I guarantee you, his films are
They,
definitely worth getting because the cinematography for his early films are simply amazing. I'm sure they look beautiful in 4K. Um, that's the reason why I would love to get
yeah,
all.
I got I filmed Opera recently. That one's awesome. You ever seen that?
Oh, wait, I've seen everyone except for his television. I've not seen
Yeah.
his television stuff because we can't. I don't think all of it's been released here in the States, so I don't think I have all of his television work yet. I'm still working on it.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to give this movie a 4. I have a greater appreciation of the movie than Dave does because I did a thesis on it, even though I only focused more on the George Romero one. My opinion hasn't really changed much in this film. I just wish more people would see it to appreciate it because one of the things is it's not like a cult classic. It's not like a film that people talk about. It's just one of those films that's out there that these two amazing directors did and many people don't talk about it. It's unfortunate, especially in my opinion, it's unfortunate. It is not a cult movie like, say, Romero's Martin or Romero's Night Riders. This movie is like people don't remember it. It's
Yeah.
they don't. They
Yeah,
don't.
it was funny. Yeah, like, I've seen it before a long time ago, and I did not remember the first part. I remembered the black cat part really well, but the first part I did not remember for some reason hardly when I watched it. When I watched it this time, it was like okay, it was like seeing it for the first time.
Mm,
It
mm.
has been a long time ago when it came out. It was probably in around 92 or something when I saw it the first time. So,
Oh, okay. So, but I will leave everyone. I almost forgot about this, and I never mentioned it before. But I will say this: I did think about another movie that's close to this in its type of format, which is Grindhouse.
Okay, yeah. I
That's
almost mentioned that a second ago too, because they actually didn't do very good at the box office either with
No,
that.
it didn't do it good at the box office. I saw it at the box office as 3 hour plus runtime with the two
Yeah,
feature films and all the trailers stuck in between it.
yeah,
But you know,
yeah,
it's an interesting one. But you know, the thing is, no one tips that too often. I like that format. If
yeah.
you could if you have a theme for it.
I,
Um,
I I hated it that didn't do good because that was such a cool idea. That
Yeah, it was
con.
just, and the filmmakers Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino said that if it did popular, they'd try and do it again.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, it did nothing at the box office.
yeah.
It
And
is.
I actually like both of the films, right? But both
Oh,
of them are
so do
pretty
I.
good.
So do
Yeah,
I. I think they're greater appreciated now than when they came
yeah,
out. But that's what happens
yeah,
sometimes. So I'm
yeah.
hoping that it happens to Two Evil Eyes, but maybe not.
Yeah, probably not.
All right. So with that, I'm going to close out this episode of Conversations in Horror. I want to thank you, Dave, for joining us on this conversation. From everyone out there, I hope that you will like, subscribe, follow, do that thing you do with your favorite podcast. You can find this one on your favorite podcast app, Spotify, YouTube. Also, make sure to check out our sister podcast, which is our Patreon exclusive podcast, which is called Conversations in 4Color, which is about graphic novels, comic books, and manga. With that, everyone here at Something Wicked Entertainment wishes you a pleasant day, and remember to check out the rest of our anthology horror films throughout this month. Have a good day. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, written, produced, and directed by Kevin L. Powers, executive producer Kelly A. Inoka. All contents and material from this episode of Conversations in Horror is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures.